top focus being the United States, as US President Donald Trump has asked Americans to remain calm as the number of coronavirus deaths in the country has surpassed 3,000. 8 people have died of COVID-19 at a nursing home in New Jersey, taking the total COVID-19 death toll to 3,148. Authorities have directed health officials to carry out on-site treatment at facility where many people are feared to be infected. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump said that the country has been doing a great job at containing the outbreak. Donald Trump also mulled strengthening social distancing guidelines, but he ruled out a nationwide stay-at-home order.
And I do want them to stay calm. And we are doing a great job. If you look at those individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away, and it will go away. And we're going to have a great victory. We may add a few more, but the guidelines will be very much as they are, maybe even toughened up a little bit. But they're having a big impact. They're having a tremendous impact, and we're starting to see it.
For a report from Ground Zero, I'm joined in by our correspondent Jagrati Dave, who's joining me live from Washington, D.C. at the moment for more updates. A very good morning to you, Jagrati. Now, a death toll of 3,000, and not to rule out the fact that the United States has the highest number of confirmed cases. The numbers, of course, are chilling. Now that Donald Trump has unveiled a new 15-minute coronavirus test kit, should one expect a spike in the number of cases?
It is expected over the next 2 weeks or so that the number of cases across the United States are going to rise. Currently, New York State is the epicenter of the virus. You were talking about that ship, that US Navy ship that docked at New York Harbor earlier today with around 1,000 hospital beds and wards that has been brought in to support the city's efforts dealing with the pandemic. But of course, other states are also concerned about the rise in the number of cases. Here on the East Coast, further down south in Washington, D.C., neighbouring Maryland and Virginia in the south, all three of these areas have issued stay-at-home orders. Most recently in Washington, D.C., they are taking it incredibly seriously. A violation of a stay-at-home order in D.C. could result in up to 5,000.
All right, we seem to be having some technical error over there. We'll try to reconnect. But the latest that we are catching on is that Donald Trump is also mulling strengthening social distancing guidelines. Okay, Jagrati is back with us. Jagrati, please go ahead.
Yes, I was saying that the states are clearly taking seriously the possibility of this number that has passed a very grim milestone, 3,000, over 3,000 deaths here in the United States. That number is likely to increase, and states are trying to do whatever they can to mitigate those numbers, to try to stop the spread and stop that peak rising higher than it needs to.
Right, Jagrati, as you just pointed out, that the situation all over the United States is very grim, but we cannot rule out the fact that New York, of course, has been hardest hit. Be the construction of a field hospital in Central Park or a 1,000-bed Navy hospital ship, the Comfort, as you just mentioned earlier. How are authorities in New York battling the situation?
Yes, New York is. Officials in the state, across the state, are talking about how they need more equipment, how they are struggling for things like ventilators, protective equipment for their staff. Hospitals are over capacity, they're saying, and this is something that they have pleaded for more equipment, and this is something that the president has addressed in the briefing today, saying that private companies such as General Electric and Ford are going to be producing ventilators. Indeed, he cited reports saying that both of those companies are aiming to produce 50,000 ventilators in less than 100 days. Other private companies are also involved. He talked about the distribution of gowns, gloves, face masks. All of these are needed equipment for frontline staff, frontline health workers who are trying to save lives. And New York State is one of the places where those equipment are needed.
Right, Jagrati, as you just mentioned about the equipment, the bitter irony is that the world's richest country has run out of masks and ventilators, and this is not just related to New York but the entire country. How are the US health authorities combating this shortage?
So as I mentioned, the president has invoked the Defence Powers Act, which enables him to force private companies to produce things like protective equipment in the time of need. And so there are private companies, and they came on the podium today to talk about what they are doing to support this endeavour, and they are producing a lot of this equipment, the distribution of this equipment. President Trump was very confident, saying that these companies are producing so much that at some point they'll exceed what is needed in the United States, and that the US can ship it to places like France and Spain and Italy, where they need equipment. So, but as you were right in saying that there was a lot of criticism of the United States from many quarters about the delay in responding to the crisis in the first place, and also the fact that there is a shortage of much needed equipment. It is incredibly grave given the expected rise in the number of cases.
And speaking of criticism, Jagriti, the US president is receiving much flack for his misplaced priorities for a head of the state who needs to be focusing on scaling the healthcare infrastructure in this hour of crisis. Focusing on television ratings might just backfire for Donald Trump, even if he himself has elections in mind.
So the president has defended his past statements, which many have said underplayed the severity of the crisis. You know, he said a CNN journalist asked him about this at the briefing today, saying, you know, you said it'll be over soon, and quoted many of the things that he had said about how this would be over very shortly, and the fact that he had before yesterday suggested that the economy could reopen by Easter, which he then later said that yesterday said was merely an aspiration. So he has been heavily criticised for this. But today and clearly the numbers have been put forward to him. Dr. Birx and Dr. Anthony Fauci, the coronavirus coordinator, and one of the US's top experts on infectious diseases, both of them presented the figures yesterday, saying that anything between 100,000 and 200,000 Americans could die, with Dr. Birx saying that even if everything was done perfectly, you could still see a fatality rate of 200,000. And so those numbers presented to the president clearly affected his decision making, clearly affected what he was saying about when the economy could reopen. And so today in the briefing, he said that the economy was his secondary concern. His first priority was to save lives. And so this is why he is extending the social distancing measures until the end of April. And of course, yes, the economy was something that he rode on in terms of his success. It was one of his big campaign issues that he would talk about at his rallies, about how good the economy is doing under his watch. But of course, this is unprecedented. And he has acknowledged this. He has acknowledged that the economy is going to take a hit, but that these measures are needed given the data that has been presented by the health experts.
All right. Those seem to be some very, very fraught times, not just for the United States, but of course the entire world at the moment. On that note, thank you so much for joining us, Jagriti. Stay safe, stay healthy.